Good morning, Lake Havasu City. Mayor Cal Sheehy here, and welcome to our very first virtual coffee with the mayor and city manager. Just introduce yourself. Yeah, today is Friday, April 24th, and this again is a special edition virtual coffee with the mayor. So grab your cup of coffee and are tuning in. For those of you that might be joining us for the first time ever for our coffee with the mayor and city manager, generally what we do is myself and Jess Knutson, the city manager, give an update of the different happenings that are happening in Lake Havasu City. We spend the first 25, 30 minutes talking about those updates, and then we'll answer any questions that our citizens may have regarding any topic that we may have addressed during our comments or anything that's on your mind. This is just a great opportunity for us to connect with our citizens and to be able to answer those questions that you have. So you may be asking questions in advance through the Facebook Live app, and we'll try and keep track of all of those so that we can answer those during the question and answer section. For those of you that might be watching this after it's recorded, you can watch this on Channel 4 from your home. You can also watch it on our city channels as well. So there's an opportunity for citizens to hear everything. So with that being said, a lot has happened since the last time that we've met. We generally meet on the first Friday of every month, and we go around to different venues. Generally, we go to venues that over the last year that are owned by you, the taxpayers of Lake Havasu City. So governmental facilities, and we would give tours and talk about what great work all of those folks do. And then this year we added venues that are kind of exciting to go see. And so we had a couple of fun ones planned for this year, and we've already backlogged those towards the end of the year. So all of our citizens can have access and see some of these really cool facilities that we have around Lake Havasu City. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being with us. We'll go ahead and get started right away with COVID-19 and the city's response efforts to COVID-19, which have been wide and varied and ever-changing. This is such a rapidly changing pandemic that's impacting not only our community, but our friends and neighbors across the region, the state, the nation, and of course, our country. And we've been working really hard on slowing the spread of the virus and working on a variety of different fronts. Very early on in the pandemic, we have committed that we would follow the CDC guidance as well as the guidance of the governor's office through executive orders that he has issued, which have been several over the past month and a half or so. The reason that we decided to do that is that allows all of us collectively, your elected leaders, city staff, and our citizens to know how we are going to be impacted and how those things are going to impact our community as it relates to the health and safety of our citizens, and then how it relates to those folks that are impacted by some of those decisions that have had to be made over this last month and a half. So by following those, all of our citizens can take a look back at them, read them, and see, okay, I see why that move was made, and I understand this move. And it also helps our citizens to have a little bit of certainty in these uncertain times by knowing what the next move is going to be. And you don't have to guess, because the CDC guidance and or the executive orders would already have that outlined in there. So Jess, you have been side by side with me throughout this process. Maybe you want to explain a little bit about an executive order and some of those mechanisms that we're using?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you got indicated that what we're dealing with here, we able to make some local decisions, but also there's a lot of decisions that are made from a regional perspective, and whether that's through the Mojave County Department of Public Health or through the governor's office and the Arizona Department of Health Services. There's a lot of regional entities that have the experts that to provide the guidance. And so a lot of what we've done here in Lake Havasu City is in response to the executive orders that come from the governor's office. So I think to date, there was one that came out 2 days ago. I think that was the 25th executive order that the governor has issued since the pandemic has commenced. some of those executive orders. In particular, there's one, the 2020-12 or 2020-18 have provided, have impacted Lake Havasu City and cities across the state the most. So these have identified in small businesses and private sector and us as residents. And these have to do with the stay-at-home order. These have to do with what is an essential business, what is a non-essential business, the different amenities that you see throughout the community that are closed. So these are executive orders that come from the governor's office. And in that executive order, it clearly states that no county, city, or town can do anything different. You must do this, and it's up to the cities to enforce and monitor and make sure that these executive orders are implemented. So, we get lots of questions here, as you know, Mayor, here at the city, through my office, through your office, through other channels, through the city, through our conversations with residents, both virtual and otherwise. Why are the restrooms closed? Why are the dog parks closed? Why are the ramadas closed in the parks? The playground equipment. Well, the response to all those questions is, executive order by the governor's office directed cities and towns to close these amenities. So it's important for us to have that understanding of roles and responsibilities. What are the roles and responsibilities of the city? What are the roles and responsibilities of the governor's office and our other public health organizations? And so, you asked me what an executive order is, Mayor, and that a little bit of a highlight. They're the orders that guide the city on actions taken throughout the pandemic that we must abide by as the city and as residents.
Yeah, thank you. And so those are kind of the framework of how we're working through this. And the conversation certainly has shifted and changed as we learn more about the virus, as we learn more about the impacts of the virus to the health and safety of citizens, the impact of the economy. So it's multifaceted and as I said, rapidly changing. For those that I've spoke with over the last month and a half, either on the telephone or virtually, you've heard me say many, many times that every day in this pandemic is like a week, and the amount of information that is coming at us, the amount of information that's changing, the amount of responses that we need to take in order to continue to protect the health and safety of our citizens. So, and we're continuing to do that. The conversation has shifted initially on what are we going to do to protect the health and safety, and those are some of the things that Jess just mentioned with the CDC guidance and the executive orders of certain suspensions and or closures or postponements of things. Early on, it was the cancellation of spring break and teen break and the spring event lineup and suspending mooring in the channel. Some of those initial things that were really important to ensure that the spread of the virus was minimized and we were all doing our part. And that all culminated with Governor Ducey's executive order for stay home, stay healthy, and stay connected, which is the current executive order that is still in effect until April 30th. Governor Ducey had a press conference this past Wednesday and outlined some of his intentions or thoughts about what that looks like. Specifically, he gave 3 options that he's considering, and he always prefaces it with the guidance of the public health professionals that are doing this. And so he's taking that information and that data and compiling it all together to make a determination for what's best for Arizona. Which then obviously would impact Lake Havasu City. But the 3 options that he outlined was to allow the current stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order to end on April 30th. And at that point, it would expire and resume the new normal, I guess we could call it, on May 1st. The other option was to modify the current stay home order and make adjustments and move the date out a little bit. And so based on some of those options, a phased approach is what it looks like. The presidential guidance was released last Thursday, so a week and a day ago. and that has three different phases. Giving the governors of all the states the flexibility, but giving some pretty clear guidance on what those phases look like on reopening America, reopening the economy, and ensuring the health and safety of our citizens. So initially, it started with suspensions, closures, those types of things, shifting into testing and how do we ensure that test kits are available. We also were working on supply chains for personal protective equipment. You might hear that on the news a lot under PPE, and how do we ensure that? Working with medical capacity to ensure our region and our community has the appropriate medical capacity. Working on medical supplies, testing kits, interfacing with the local medical community and regionally to see what all of those pieces look like. And now the conversation remains focused on the health and safety of our citizens. But what does the new normal look like? What does a reopen look like? When is it appropriate for all of those things? And again, in the governor's press conference this week, one of the things that I took away and thought was a great analogy was the dimmer switch. So, a lot of folks believe that a date certain, we flip the switch and everything goes back to again what that new normal looks like. When that really isn't going to be the case. And so again, the governor uses the analogy of a dimmer switch. And when he was making his executive orders for business closures and stay home orders and all of those, it was on a phased in approach. And so kind of lowering the dimmer switch. And now the reverse would be true, where we're increasing the dimmer switch. So that leads into testing, and testing is a real hot topic for folks, and people are interested. I for one believe widespread testing is going to be important as we move forward, so that we have access to that and access to supplies. But again, the supply chain is where the challenge is at when it comes to testing. Dr. Kara Christ, who leads the effort for the state health department, she is just this week changed some of her guidance on where testing and testing kits could be. So because of supply chain issues and the lack of availability of testing kits, there was a time that the guidance was symptomatic folks would be able to get a COVID test, and then the guidance changed to only frontline medical workers and first responders that show symptoms. And that was after we hit community spread, meaning all 15 counties of Arizona having confirmed cases. And now as the supply chain's increasing and testing is going to be more readily available. And I like to preface that because a lot of times we hear on national news that testing is available and it's here. And as you and I both know, it's not here, and we continue to push for that so that it can make its way to rural America and to all of our communities, so that we have the same access as everybody else. But as that now that Dr. Christ changed her guidance and it can be more widespread at this point, so we continue to push for testing and we think that is one of the key elements. Based on some of the presidential guidance and some of Governor Ducey's comments about reopening and what that might look like. So I don't know, Jess, if you have any additional thoughts on that.
No, I think, you touched on it a little bit too, where our conversations we have routinely throughout the week, where we're engaging with conversations with the other, with Bullhead City and Kingman, but more importantly with Mojave County Department of Public Health, and with the representatives and CEOs of the hospitals in Mojave County. And then, been engaging up into this point, Mayor, with some phone calls with all the mayors on the governor's conference call. So, and all of these efforts allow us to gain some more information about testing and those types of things, but also be able to advocate for some of these things. So our position in Havasu, and when I'm talking, when Mayor, when you're talking, when our council members are talking, and our other leaders at the city are talking, we're asking for just that. So we need more of that happening in our community. Some of the messaging that we're hearing from otherwise says that it's here and it's available, but where the priorities are what the concern is in terms of a limited number of tests. So who gets those tests? One of the things here is at the city that we're concerned about is with regards to our public safety professionals. So our police and fire professionals that are maybe engaging with folks in the community that may or may not have tested positive or showing symptoms, those types of things too. It's important for us to protect our public safety professionals because we don't want them to engage in a situation where they might be in contact and then go to another call or go back with to the fire station with the other fire professionals, those types of things too. So a lot of precautions are being taken with regards to PPE, with regards to monitoring and checks and making sure we're all healthy and safe, and then providing our employees with the resources to be able to go home and take a break if they're showing symptoms. So if there are symptoms that are occurring, we don't want them here infecting the others or otherwise. But so one of the things that we're advocating for here too is that we need testing available for our public safety professionals. So that's very, very important to us. But as these conversations occur at the national level, as these conversations occur at the local level about what does this mean in terms of reopening the economy, and we're waiting for the direction from the governor's office as the current executive orders that we talked about earlier expire on April 30th. What does that mean going forward in terms of how we do that? And our position at Havasu is testing is very, very important. We've had questions about availability of testing for just whether or not you're positive or negative for COVID-19. We've also had a lot of questions as far as the antibody testing. So that's something that we've done some research on, where you're tested to see whether or not you've had COVID in the past, or maybe you have some built up immunity for COVID-19. And these tests are supposed to indicate that. So what we're hearing back from the medical community right now is that these tests aren't accurate to the point where we feel comfortable certainly utilizing these tests on city staff or advocating for otherwise. But we're hearing about 60-70% accuracy on some of these tests. But these are things we'd love to see the accuracy increase and be able to utilize those types of testing measures here in Havasu for our residents and for the public and for our first responders and for everybody else that needs to understand how to identify whether or not they have it and take appropriate action to protect the others around them.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. And sorry I had to jump out for a second. Again, with this rapidly moving pandemic, important calls are coming in daily and by the minute. So thank you for that. A couple of other things that have changed are the way that we do our council meetings now. And so we had our first council meeting a week and a half ago or so since the pandemic started. Using electronic means. And so we have myself, we have Jess, our city manager, our city clerk, Jerry Bracamani, that's leading the way for us, all in the council chambers. And then all of our council members are joining us via video, a live feed. And that's broadcast out over on Channel 4 or any of the other live feeds that you may watch our council meetings. We unfortunately did not have a call to the public on the first one because we weren't really sure how the technology was going to work, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to conduct the citizens' business in an effective and fair way. But we're excited that our upcoming council meeting this Tuesday will allow for call to the public. Call to the public is an opportunity for citizens to address the city council on anything within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. And they can, at this point, you can type your comments, send them in an hour before the council meeting, and the clerk will read those into the record. And then we'll continue to have our council meeting as we normally do. I was really proud of the efforts that city staff did to be able to make this happen so we can continue to do the citizens' business in the most seamless way. And certainly would like to recognize Jerry Bracamani, Steve Blake, our city clerk, Kelly Williams, and our IT department for all of their hard work to make sure that we can connect with our citizens although not in person, but the next best way where you can see our faces, see what we're doing in the business. So we're also doing our planning and zoning commission meetings in a very similar manner. So those are a couple of the other changes. So just any other thoughts on COVID-19 and our response that you might want to share?
Well, I think there's just a whole lot going on, and we're doing our best that we can in terms of trying to respond to the questions. And I can see here there's some questions coming in from Facebook Live, and we'll get to those here in a second, and maybe hit on some of these things as we go through it. But I think it's important that that the residents understand that first and foremost that it's the health and safety of our residents above all else that is the most important. And these aren't just words that we say because they sound good or feel good. We mean it. We're sincere about it. We're thoughtful about it. Later on, and we'll have some discussions about the impacts to the city's budget and what that means for us. But that's an afterthought in terms of what decisions we're taking right now to ensure the health and safety of our residents. And then I think that I haven't seen it yet, but just the last month or 6 weeks, or that have all been just a blur. It's we get questions, comments, and concerns from our residents that are all over the spectrum. So we have the residents that call in that think that they're voicing their opinions and their thoughts that the pandemic is it's a hoax or that it's not serious and we just need to turn the economy back on 100% and get back to life as usual. And then we get comments and thoughts and concerns coming from residents that are in fear, frankly, for their lives. We have a population out there that is either the senior population or have some type of underlying medical concerns, and they're fearful. And so we have people literally yelling at the city, shut it down. And then the next phone call is somebody yelling at the city to open it up. So I think that you indicated early on when we first started this, that it's important for us to trust the experts, to trust the guidance that's coming to us, and then to be thoughtful, be sincere, and take that middle of the line, common sense, logical approach right down the middle to ensure that we're doing what's appropriate, but without any extremes in our decision making process.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll move on to a few other city updates outside of COVID, but generally they all relate right back into it. And then we'll get to the questions that have been coming in and any additional questions that citizens may have in the meantime. Again, if you're just joining us today, this is our first virtual coffee with the mayor and city manager. Generally, we do this on the first Friday of every month in person, and we generally have well over 100 citizens attend and listen to a city update and then ask any questions that they may have related to our great community. We're doing it virtual and we're glad to have that opportunity. I would like just to take a moment to introduce a few of our council members. You're not going to be able to see their faces. They're common folk or they're common attendees to the Coffee with Mayor and City Manager, and they're joining us live with us this morning. So first, I would like to recognize Vice Mayor David Lane, who's with us and has been doing a tremendous job with the LHC Resource Alliance, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then I'd also like to recognize Councilmember Donna McCoy, who's joining us. Thank you. It's good to see you in here. And Councilmember McCoy has been steadfast in her support and leadership throughout this process, and very grateful for my colleagues on City Council. All six council members and myself are in this together with all of our citizens and city staff, and really focusing all of our attentions on the health and safety of our community and our citizens. So thank you for joining us, Vice Mayor Lane and Councilmember McCoy. We'll go into the U.S. Census. I kind of got faded into this whole pandemic, but every 10 years, the U.S. Constitution says we all need to stand up and be counted. And there's no time that's more important than now for us to ensure that we're all counted. So we've talked about this several times through Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager and a variety of other forums, but it's so important. And some of the impacts to the U.S. Census are state shared revenues. These are taxes that we already pay. So income taxes, gasoline taxes, those types of things that are sent to the state are redistributed back to cities and towns and counties based on population data gathered from the U.S. Census. So it's important that for us to get our share of what we're already paying back into our community to take care of our roads and take care of our needs, such as police, fire, parks, all of those things and amenities that that citizens expect and deserve in Lake Havasu City are paid for, through these dollars. And so it's important that we do that. In addition, our federal representation is also based on this. So it's estimated that Arizona will receive 1 or 2 more congressional districts than we already have based on new Arizona population data from the 2020 census. And so it's important that we stand up to be counted so that the state of Arizona is fairly represented at the federal level. In addition, there's also site selectors, folks that are looking to relocate businesses here or open stores or some of your highly sought after retail stores and restaurants that we all want. The very first thing they do is they go grab demographic data and they take a look at that before they make any choices. So again, it's so important that we have accurate information. I covered a few of the highlights. You want to talk about some additional benefits of the importance of the U.S. Census?
Yeah, it's dramatically important. There's a reason why we're constantly talking about it and asking our residents here in Lake Havasu City and everybody that was here on April 1st in Lake Havasu City to fill out the census for Havasu. These are dollars coming into our community. It allows us to provide the services at a local level. Now more than ever, we need the ability for us to provide the services to our residents. So we all pay a gas tax, we all pay a sales tax into the state, and income tax and registration taxes, and all that stuff goes to Phoenix, and then is distributed back to cities and counties and throughout the state based on the census population. So very, very important that Havasu is getting our fair share. And so it's if you filled out the census, thank you so much. If you haven't, please do it right away, and encourage those that around you to fill out their census. We're having a friendly competition with Kingman and Bullhead City right now, and with the number of response rates and percentages. And I don't know Cal, if you received the latest numbers this morning, but I do know that we're trailing Kingman, but we're in second place in Bullhead City. And through social media, I saw just yesterday or sometime this week that Bullhead City is now coming for us. So it's a friendly competition. It sounds like Bullhead City has their sights on Lake Havasu City. So whatever you can do to encourage your family, friends, neighbors, and others to fill out that census would be so important for us. If nothing else, just to beat Bullhead City, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. I was trying to find the website. It's if you did not get your so the way you're going to be able to fill out your census is you should get a postcard or a letter that would have like a unique identifier for your household. If you're a head of household, use that, put it in the computer, and fill out your information. If you don't receive one, which I did not receive one, it's just very simple to go onto the website. Put in, I believe I put in my address or my zip code, something along the lines. But it was really easy to authenticate who I was and fill out my census. So it's really simple. Please encourage your family and your friends and your neighbors to fill out the U.S. Census. It's primarily online this year, but as in decades in the past, there still are going to be U.S. Census workers knocking on doors. Of course, when it's safe to do so, but they will knock on doors to ensure that everyone's counted. So now when we are staying home, please log on to the computer and fill out your U.S. Census information. It's very, very important.
That website is 2020census.gov. So whether you've got something in the mail or not, I got a postcard in the mail, but I went on the website without using it and go through a process where you verify kind of who you are very quickly and about your address. And then from that point, you can fill it out. So 2020census.gov. I think it's took me about 6-7 minutes to fill it out. So it was, please encourage you to do that for Havasu. It helps support our parks, public safety professionals. It helps our schools and it helps our nonprofits and our charities within the community as well too. So it's not all about just the city government itself, but there's so many impacts that it has to our kids, to our adults, to the seniors up and down the community. So please help us.
Yeah, thank you. All right. As things have shifted and changed over the last month and a half with the pandemic, the way we deliver city services has had to change as well. And one of the more innovative things that have changed is in our recreation department. Our team has done a really phenomenal job of shifting to virtual recreation activities, such as video exercise classes with their favorite instructors that would normally be facilitating those classes down at the community center. Crafts for kids, so videos for parents to use and do different crafts with their children that are staying home. And we also our after school programs that are run by Parks and Recreation in the city. We have, or not we, but all of the folks that work with those children are doing videos from the different school sites, just letting the children know that we miss you. We can't wait till we're back together again. But some really neat things that our recreation department's done, and I'm really proud of them. Just I don't know if you want to talk about that any further, or any of the other services that might have shifted a bit.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of our parks and recreation staff for doing what they're doing and responding and evolving in these times. So yeah, you're on the website right now, potentially watching it on Facebook Live. If you're watching this broadcast later, go to the city's Facebook page, and you'll see that there's some exercise classes and different health classes. I saw Janice on this week with a cooking class that's out there. Some different fun activities that are happening. And if you have ideas for us on other things that we can do virtually for our residents, please post them here in the comments, or contact our Park and Recreation, or get a hold of us through Facebook on different ideas and things that we can do to provide these types of services or more services to our residents. We've even heard from some folks that said even when this is all said and done and we're back to the new normal, that let's continue to have these things on Facebook. So so maybe throughout this process, there's a lot of good coming about looking at things from a different perspective and allowing us to provide a different type of service moving forward. So thanks for everybody for their feedback, and keep it coming.
Great. Another thing that was started through this pandemic is the LHC Resource Alliance. This is an alliance. Early on, we understood that we were going to have to look at this multifaceted and from a variety of different fronts in our community. So bringing together different community partners to be able to lead the effort to help our citizens that needed an immediate boost up, or just needed a little bit of extra assistance to be able to get through the day, the week, or the month, and then also assist our businesses with resources and grants and those types of things, and then help on the health front. So folks that that may need help getting access to healthcare, or food programs with the food bank, those types of things. So bringing all of those in together. And we started those conversations early on, as I said, before we knew really the direction that this would be going with the stay-home orders and closures and those types of things. I appointed Vice Mayor David Lane, who's been doing a remarkable job on behalf of the city, leading this effort, along with Lisa Kruger, the president and CEO of the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Pennington, the president and CEO of River Cities United Way, Christina Hook, the director of the local Better Business Bureau, Linda Seaver, the president and CEO of the Havasu Community Health Foundation, and is that the five organizations?
That's the four.
If I didn't keep track, I was going to take this one, but they're doing such great work, and our food bank is equipped and is serving more families than ever before. They're doing it in a social distanced way with a drive-through mechanism. However, the burdens are strong. So if you are wanting or finding that you have time to volunteer or some additional resources that you may want to donate to these efforts, please reach out to one of those areas. You can go again onto the city's Facebook page. You can see some video updates from Vice Mayor Lane and members of the Alliance talking about what they've been doing. Again, they've been doing some really fantastic work, and you also find ways that you may be able to help. I'd like to share a few of the stuff, a few of the key activities that have come out of this, which are just such amazing stories. You know, I always talk about how great like Havasu City is, and you know, it's a special place that all of us collectively work together in unison to just make things happen. And it's been that way since the very first days with Robert McCulloch and his ingenuity and vision, and continued on with our pioneer citizens that are still here today. You know, moving forward with new innovations. And then all of us that came after that continue to work hard every single day to make Lake Havasu City such a great place. But a couple of things the chamber has funneled. Within the Alliance, they have separated themselves into different pathways. You know, the business pathway, the health and human services pathway, the grants pathway. And so a variety of different pieces. But the chamber has directed over 100 calls directing business and citizens regarding grant funding, loans, working from home and essential services, and what all of that looks like. Over 1,000 business members, amazing, attended the Better Business Bureau's webinars on topics to gain support, or on topics on how business support is available, most specifically through the federal legislation of the CARES Act. They've been leaders in that area. The food bank has distributed over 90,000 pounds of food since the start of the crisis, helping over 600 families. You know, great work. You know, River Cities United Way created business grants, 29 individual grants to assist the operational expenses, utilities, food, rent, car payments, and more. They're ready and willing to help anyone at any time. Just yesterday, Vice Mayor Lane mentioned to me that over 20 new applications came in, and these are applications that are moving fast. These are local decisions with local monies by local citizens. So these are all donated funds by people that live here, work here, and then decisions being made to get these resources out to people right away. Also the Hospitality Association is running a great food voucher program for displaced hospitality workers and their families. Anyone that finds themselves that was in that industry and might be displaced at this time or furloughed or laid off can go to the cause, which is on McCulloch, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and for the hospitality website or Facebook page, and you can see the hours. But they're giving out vouchers to restaurants that are currently open, offering curbside delivery or to-go services. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's feeding families of displaced workers, but it's also providing a little bit of revenue to those restaurants that remained open. So you know, these stories just continue to go over and over and over, and we'll share some really detailed stories later about what all this looks like. So the LHC Resource Alliance, I'm so proud of the work they're doing. I'm grateful for Vice Mayor Lane and his leadership on behalf of the city. It allows myself and my colleagues and Jess and his team to be able to focus on the other facets of this fast-moving and rapidly changing situation that we're dealing with. So I don't know, Jess, if you have any comments there, if you want to go into the road construction, your choice.
Okay, well, I just want to echo your comments. I think that we're you know, just so busy over here with the mayor. We need to declare that the local emergency here in Havasu. It changed things in terms of the role and responsibility that you have as the mayor and the decisions that need to be made on the fly. Even before that time, that you've moved away from your role as the GM at the Lunenburg Resort and haven't been playing that role for a number of weeks now since the local emergency was identified. So we're all super busy, and that's not just me and you, but that's throughout the community with Vice Mayor Dave Lane and the four agencies that you mentioned that are assisting. And these are existing agencies in the community that have been doing good in Havasu for decades. And so we're very, very thankful to be living in Havasu, to be able to reap the rewards of their efforts and their hard work. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm. As far as this is my way of avoiding the chip seal conversation. So
it's yours. You're up.
Okay. So our annual program for road maintenance, and then this year includes another round of chip seal. We are going to council next week for the next council meeting. You indicated how that works a little bit differently, but still want to invite people to provide comments if need be. But one of those agenda items is for a fog seal treatment. So the last few meetings back, we the approval for chip seal, and then we've started that work. It was supposed to be a 3-week project, and I think we're going to finish up that work today, and something might bleed into Monday. But I think we're all that the chip seal project will commence, or excuse me, will be completed today. We hit about 7% of our streets here in Lake Havasu City with the chip seal. We're trying to do at least 10% of our roads get touched through some type of road maintenance activity each year. So that means that we're touching each of our roads every 10 years. So that continues to be our plan. And chip seal in an ad or a commercial for chip seal is that it's a very, very, very cost effective, and it provides us with a road that lasts for about 10 years. So there's lots of conversations we're having here at the staff level to research other road maintenance options as well. So it's not just about chip seal. So we'll see the fog seal treatment in the upcoming weeks and months, and then looking at some other options kind of moving forward, what that looks like. So up until the pandemic and the impacts with the budgets, we were talking about some other road projects where you'd actually see us ripping up the roads and putting new roads in. But we'll talk about that in a second. Although I see it's next up on our list of items to hit and talk about with the public today. So. And so maybe I'll kind of bleed in that a little bit too, in terms of why chip seal is it's cost effective, and we have limited resources. We need to touch all the roads within the community every 10 years. So that allows us to do just that. Otherwise, our roads would be in much worse condition if we're doing 5% and touching them every 20 years. They'd be falling apart regardless of what type of treatment we'd be using. I'll jump in, Mayor, if you don't mind, and talk about the budget and the impacts of what COVID-19 has had on city resources. Up until about 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, honestly, everything just kind of blurs there lately. We had a lot of plans in place based on some of the moves that the city's made in years past to be able to do some really good things, and whether it's road maintenance or vehicles for the city that are long overdue. We have our volunteers and what's called our CERT team and our that support our firefighters and our fire professionals. When a house fire occurs or a fire occurs here in Havasu, our fire professionals respond to that property, and it's a group of volunteers, the CERT volunteers, that are wonderful people that show up in their vehicle and provide us with the ability to with bottled water stations and all the equipment that's needed to help support our fire professionals, but also providing packages and information to the homeowners and in such a horrible time when their property was destroyed or impacted by fire. They've been driving a vehicle that is you're looking at that's decades old. I think it's like 25 years old. At one point, we had an instance last year where they tried to take it out and it wouldn't start. We had a plan in place and we might still be able to, but these are things that this is one example of dozens of items that we look at the city that we were hopeful to address through the budget process. And then COVID-19 hit. And so we're looking at what those impacts are. We're forecasting. We just don't, first of all, when I say we're forecasting and modeling and taking a look at numbers, that's just another way of saying that we're guessing. We're trying to figure this out like everybody else. I don't know if this is something that's going to impact us for the next 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. in terms of the pandemic. I don't know what this means to the impacts to the city's local economy and the success of our local businesses. We're reliant on that. So we're helpful in every turn we can. But we're going to be dealing for sure with shortfalls in the budget. So I'm working on some numbers, be able to present that to council and the residents. I believe that's on May 7th will be our first budget session. At that point, we'll be talking about the last couple of years in terms of the financial health of the city, and then some projections and what that might look like moving forward. And then have some discussions on what the proposed CIP or what's left of it will be for the city and for the next 5 years. But our projections are we're looking at about a 20% decrease in sales tax and fuel tax, and those dollars, the sales tax dollars that we're reliant on. That's how we pay for public safety. The fuel tax dollars that come back to Havasu, those are the dollars that we're reliant on for road repairs and for paying for our personnel to maintain the roads and the equipment that we purchase and use for the maintenance of the roads. So all those funds will be impacted, and we got to take a real close look at what we can do to get to maintain services as we go forward. So that's something I've been working on for a number of weeks and involving conversations with you, Mayor, and with the council members and up and down in terms of the organization and all the departments to see what can we do to continue to provide services. I'm not going to have a whole lot of good news to deliver at that meeting on May 7th. In the meantime, we're doing things now that are going to lessen the likelihood of us making some really hard decisions moving forward. So right now it's not a hiring freeze with the city, but it's a strategic hiring freeze. That means that we need officers, we need firefighters, we need those folks that in this time more so than anything. But there is a hiring freeze in effect that allows us to save a few dollars here and there, and just looking at everything we do from a different lens and a different perspective. So if there's things that we can do now to save a few dollars here and there that is not disruptive to our residents, every opportunity that we can. Challenging myself, I'm challenging the departments and the employees up and down the organizations to be thinking outside the box, be creative. How can we look at this budget from a different perspective? But it's going to impact us, and it's going to impact us significantly moving forward. So, but we're working hard to do the best we can.
Yeah, so the city's budget is all primarily funded through sales tax. So of course, we get state shared revenues that we talked about a little bit during the U.S. Census and some of those. But March and July are typically our largest sales tax collection months, if you will. And as you know, March is when Governor Ducey's order was being discussed and started to go into effect. So. And then there's also a lag on when we get reporting, and we're working with the State Department of Revenue so we can identify what those look like. But Justin and his team have been doing a good job, and we're committed to continue to provide the services to our citizens in the best way possible, and we'll continue to keep everyone informed on the impacts of this as we learn new information. We'll share that information with you. So good job, Jess, to you and your team. Moving on, before we're almost to the part where we're going to answer the questions, and we have been taking note of those questions. So if you see Jess or I looking down, it's not that we're not interested; it's that we're making sure that the questions are coming in and we have access to those. But we, believe it or not, we do have a local election coming up, and so since last time we all met in the coffee with the mayor and city manager, all of the packets for candidates for city council, we have 3 city council positions that are up for this year. The packets were due at the very first of April, and they're now all in. So again, 3 seats. Vice Mayor David Lane's first term ends this year. Councilmember Gordon Grote's first term ends this year, and Councilmember Donna McCoy's second term ends this year. Councilmember McCoy has decided not to run for another term. We're going to miss her leadership, but so we have 3 seats open, and of that, we have 6 candidates that were able to file their paperwork successfully. Vice Mayor David Lane is seeking re-election. Councilmember Gordon Grote is seeking re-election. And then Mike Bonney, Nancy Campbell, Dave Armio, and Cameron Moses have all successfully turned in their packets as well. So those 6 folks will be on the primary ballot in August, and potentially the election will be called at that time, depending on the number of votes, or they'll move into the November general election. So a little bit on the local election fronts, and I will continue to keep you posted on that. We also launched from the mayor's chair newsletter. It's just an additional opportunity for us to communicate with our citizens on things that are important to you. Our goal is to always communicate, and one of the main things that I like to do is get out and talk to our citizens one-on-one or in groups, so that I can understand how it is that I can best serve each one of you. Those opportunities have been limited over the last month and a half during this pandemic. And so we want to make sure that we have additional means to do that. We've been releasing videos and statements and memes and guest editorials with today's News Herald, which I'm grateful for the ability to be able to do that they've allowed me that space. And then through social media and some of those other mediums, this just provides another resource. So our first edition was sent out yesterday, and we'll send those out going forward. The interval hasn't been determined yet. Again, this is so rapid and fast moving. It was always something on my list to do since I took office. And everyone I probably has that sticky note or that list of things that they want to do. And this just forced me to do it. So I'm glad that I can bring this additional communication tool to you. And very grateful to the staff here at the city, Jerry Brachmani and Steve Blake, for helping me be able to get that information to you. So if you're interested in learning more about it, you can go to the city's website at lhcaz.gov, click on the Contact Us in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll be able to get to the subscribe button. You also can scroll to the bottom, and there's a subscribe button there as well. Not only can you choose to receive news from me, but you can receive news from other city departments as well. So click the boxes that you might have interest in getting direct information from the city, and we'd be happy to include you on that list. So Jess, unless you have anything else, I think we can probably get started with the questions.
Perfect, let's do it.
All right. Again, just because this is going to be recorded and rebroadcast over, this is the first virtual coffee with the mayor and city manager. Today is Friday, April 24th. The format we generally do is on the first Friday of each month. We meet at a different place throughout the community, and generally over 100 citizens join us during that process, and we give a city update and answer questions. We seem to be right on track as if we were all together today on the timing of updates versus questions. So thank you for joining us. You can watch this live stream on Facebook Live or on any of the city's channels. Before we answer the questions, I'd also like to say hello and good morning to Councilmember Jim Dolan, who's joined us as well. So Jim, for your leadership throughout this process. So all right, so we'll start with first question, and like so we take all questions, so we'll answer them to the best that we can. The first question is why is tailgating wrong? It seems to be a good form of social distancing. I'm assuming that's related to an event that occurred out at a restaurant in Desert Hills, where it's my understanding that they were doing a drive-in tailgating, something along those lines. Desert Hills is not in the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. It's not Lake Havasu City limits, and Lake Havasu City was not involved in that. But with that being said, to answer the question why it's wrong is early on in our discussion this morning, we talked about the CDC guidance. And the CDC guidance says 10 gatherings of 10 or more should be, we should not do those. So we should gather in groups of 10 or less. I like to remind people, pick the same 10 people during this pandemic right now. So if you are an asymptomatic carrier of the virus, for example, and you are with 9 people today, 9 people tomorrow and 9 people the next day, that's 24 people or so, or 30 people that you've been with in that period of time that you could have potentially exposed to that. So tailgating is not recommended at this time. Small groups of folks is what is recommended through the CDC guidance. Moving on to, we have a question. Lots of citizens, or hundreds of citizens, are upset about the handling of Body Beach. State Trust says it's indefinitely closed, even after the COVID-19 regulations are lifted. The Body Beach area, the land area, is state land, state trust land, and state trust land was given as statehood to the state, and it's used. It's a trust for, I believe, just is it 12 entities that are beneficiaries, but primarily K-12 education.
Yeah. Primarily education, but about a dozen other entities that are involved in that process too.
Yeah, so state trust lands' sole mission is to administer the trust for the highest value for their beneficiaries, and so that is what they do. In mid-March, there was a fire on this land, and that fire spread and to an area that was large, and so the area was closed down because of what do they call that, Jess? It remained hot or something.
Oh, yeah. So essentially, there's a term for it, but basically, you still have embers hot embers that are burning down, and then a little bit of wind is all it takes for one of those embers to carry and start the fire another time.
Yeah, so state trust lands closed the land for the fire and the concerns of fire risk and fire mitigation. We continue to work with state lands. We know how important Body Beach is to our community, to our citizens that use that area, and we're working with the partner with our partner at State Parks. State Lands. There's lots of different partners. We're working with State Lands, who owns Body Beach, to have that area reopened when it's safe to do so. That's their call. It's their land. It's not our land, but we're going to continue to make that a priority when it's safe for everybody. So,
I think just to kind of add to that too, I think it's the emphasis here is that the state land property, and I think that we've been grateful and thankful for state land for allowing the use of that property for recreational purposes for the long haul. So that's very, very appreciative, and we'll echo that appreciation every time we talk to state land to encourage that. Maybe there's some type of a long-term plan where we can look at doing something with state land to build upon that facility and really make it a remarkable area. But right now we're talking to the state land department. We're talking to the commissioner, and she's receiving the commissioner's receiving lots of phone calls from our public as well too. It's honestly it might cause her to do something even more drastic. So we're working with them in a partnership, but we understand that there's people that recreate out there that enjoy that area, and we want that to continue, probably even more so than that has in the past. But please be patient. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with issues that exist out here. We have the closure of a lot of things here in the community, and maybe here within the next couple of weeks we can look at things a little closer. But I know that some of the initial comments coming back from the state land commissioner, when thoughts are discussed about that beach and the increase of use at that beach, well, that's state land too. So we don't want to have conversations that might enhance the existing actions that have been taken. So in the end, it's not city property, it's state land property. We really appreciate the use of that property, and greatly understand the concerns and frustrations from the recreational community. Be patient, and we'll figure this thing out. It won't take long, and we'll be able to set ourselves up for some success for lots of years, based on some conversations we've had previously and continue to have during this time.
Thank you. A couple of other questions is again, Body Beach going to open on May 1st. We don't have a date certain, but again, we're working with state lands to do that, and I think Jess said it well. Another citizen telling us that it's a multi-million-dollar personal watercraft industry, and would like some clarity on Body Beach. Hopefully, we were able to clarity on the opening. We can't do that yet, but we are working actively on it. We understand the importance of personal watercraft. I've long been a champion of our personal watercraft sport and events for many years. I continue to be so, and I know that the city is supportive of that as well. The next question is, with new cases popping up every 2 to 3 days here in Havasu, what guidelines set by the state dictate how things are opened here in town? Or will you be opening businesses and parks in a different way? Great question. And that's where a lot of the conversation has been going over the last couple of weeks on kind of what does it look like to reopen? When is the appropriate time? And how is it done? And so President Trump and his team released the presidential guidelines for reopening America last Thursday. That sets the framework for a phased approach of phase 1, 2, and 3 on how that would look like. And I know the presidential guidelines give governors of the state some flexibility in how they want to do that. And so that will be happening right now through the governor's office. There's a group of folks that he appointed, he being Governor Ducey, to help lead those efforts in the state of Arizona, namely Sandra Watson, the president and CEO of the Arizona Commerce Authority, and Debbie Johnson, the director of the Arizona Office of Tourism, working with stakeholders in regions across the state to determine when it's safe and what guidelines should be adhered to when we move forward. A report was due to the governor late this week, so he probably should have it at this point. I know he and his senior policy advisors are going through some of those things and be able to determine what that looks like. Although I don't have any specifics right now, because again, it's rapidly moving and it's quick. It will be in a similar fashion, in my opinion, as the way that things were shut down. Where I get that information is just kind of off of my interpretation of the governor's press conference and some of the guidance that we've seen in those executive orders. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jess, or do we pretty much cover those points?
I think we've covered for the most part. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening very quickly, kind of moving forward, and where our eyes are open, our ears are open, and we're trying to read through the tea leaves. So as we watch the governor's press conference earlier this week, we're trying to read between the lines, and just like everybody else, some of those indications that we see is his analogy with regards to that dimmer switch and his discussions in terms of all the executive orders and all the decisions that they made through executive order all happen incrementally, one at a time, over a period of time. Again, I think there's like 25, at least 25 executive orders have been released. So his conversations there at that point is like, what does it look to turn that dimmer switch on, which means kind of a phased approach. So we're watching like everybody else. We'll react very quickly in terms of what that means for Havasu. And of course, we will continue to advocate for our positions here in Havasu with the governor's office.
All right, the next question is, can we address what businesses will reopen, if any, on May 1st? Kind of tailgates into what we just talked about. Governor Ducey's current stay home, stay healthy, and stay connected executive order goes through April 30th. He has a few options that he outlined this week. One is letting it expire and things open back up on May 1st. Modifying it and extending it, and then the third option is extending the current order. So those are kind of the three options that he's weighing right now, and we should have some additional clarity in the next several days, and we'll get that information out just as quick as we can, and continue to communicate. So that's the latest on that. The next question is, if you think you have had it in, say, like in December or January, who should you contact to see if maybe you have the antibodies in your system that might help others? Great question. A lot of the questions around testing are so valuable and so important. The FDA just approved the first antibody test late last week, and so the antibody testing is getting better. Right now, health experts are what I'm being told is health experts are not set on that antibody testing just yet until it gets a little bit more accurate. And as it gets more accurate, that would be a good alternative or a good way for people to know if they have the antibodies. Coming out of this, it seems that a mix of more testing, more of the COVID testing, do you have it? And then antibody testing kind of in concert or phased for widespread availability for everybody will be the key is what health experts are telling me. And so I do understand there's one or two local companies that are offering antibody testing opportunities. And if that seems right for you, then that seems to maybe be an option. Jess, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, we talked about it at the start of the meeting, so that kind of echoes some of those earlier comments.
All right, the next question is, will exercise videos continue when this is over? And, everything creates innovation, and I think it's probably too early to say, but Jess, that's definitely in your ballpark if you wanted to.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. We've heard a lot of those comments, so I think that's something that we will do that. So some of the benefits of going through, abiding by the stay-at-home order and these types of things and social distancing requirements and so forth is we do things a little bit differently and allows us to look at new ideas moving forward. So yeah, I think that's something we'll definitely look at, keep on going. So maybe we'll keep on doing the coffees with virtually even with the new normal, or I think that we're both very ready to get in front of residents and have some face-to-face conversations and see that interaction. So some things won't change, but this is the recreation programs online is one thing that, we're looking at very, very closely. And if people have more ideas about what we're doing differently now that we should look at for the long term, tell us. We'd like to hear it.
The next question is any information on when elective surgeries will be allowed? Governor Ducey issued an executive order on Wednesday that allows elective surgeries to resume on May 1st. It's a little bit more complicated than just that. Folks that want to, or hospitals or facilities or surgery centers that want to be able to do elective surgeries have to meet a set of criteria that includes supply of PPE, show medical or hospital capacity, those types of things. And they have to make a plan and send it into the Arizona Department of Health Services for approval before they can do that. So elective surgeries will be allowed pending approval from Arizona Department of Health Services starting on May 1st based on the executive order. And it's my understanding that all of the area operators in this region do intend to resume those once they have the proper approvals. The next question or comment is you're ignoring the latest numbers and facts. Not sure exactly what that means, but everything that we've shared this morning on our response efforts is what we've been doing. If you want to learn more about what we're doing, you can go to the Lake Havasu City website at lhcaz.gov. You can click on the COVID-19 tab, and you can see all of the actions that have been taken and steps that we're doing to mitigate that. As far as the total number of cases, again, today is Friday, April 24th, and we currently have 26 confirmed cases in Lake Havasu City since the start of the pandemic. And those are the numbers that we're working with. If you want to look at testing data by county or at the state level, I would recommend you go to the Arizona Department of Health Services website. They have a very interactive tool that shows testing. It shows capacity. It's updated every morning at 9 a.m. It's available to everybody. Or you can also go to Mojave County Department of Public Health and and take a look at the stats there. The health department is the reporting agency. They're the lead agency in a health crisis. So all cases and tests and all those types of things go through those entities and are reported on and tracked. So hopefully that answers the question about us ignoring the latest numbers. Someone wants to see legal documentation from trust lands that says that we can close Body Beach. Again, I think we addressed that earlier. State Lands owns Body Beach, and it's closed at this time from the concerns with fire and fire risk mitigation and those types of things. So next question is how many with COVID are in our hospital and how many are at home? Jess, do you have any comments on that? I don't have the exact specifics, but I know there are more recovering at home than are using medical facilities.
Yeah, we get the reports that come in as they come in. I don't have any comprehensive data. We could go back and go through the county's website and then pull some of those stats down and then identify that. We get notified when a positive case occurs, and at that time we get notified whether or not they're quarantined, self-quarantined at home or in the hospital. We don't get notified when, for each individual case, we get broad numbers and some conversations we have with the healthcare professionals, but we don't have the specific numbers in terms of when they're released from the hospital then to go home. So we don't have any type of real-time data. But I think just off the cuff, the majority, I think probably at least 3/4, Cal. I don't know if you see it a little differently with that were probably more so than that. That were identified as a positive COVID-19 case are at home and recovering at home.
Yeah, and as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that data is updated at 9 a.m. every morning, and so we're with morning at 9, so we haven't had a chance to go through the data. But I recommend you go to those sites and take a
much better approach than listen to me think about what my guesses might be. So yeah, that's rely on the data, and that's at the county's website.
All right, next question or comment looks like is again with Body Beach. We've talked that through. There's another one right after that about Body Beach is an outdoor recreation area, which is approved in the executive order, which great comment. Yes, the executive order as essential services by Governor Ducey does have outdoor recreation as essential. Governor Ducey believes that citizens need to get outdoors and enjoy some fresh air and get some exercise. So as part of that, outdoor recreation remains available for citizens to do while practicing social distancing guidelines. So that's an important piece of that. It's state trust land, and it's right now with fire mitigation and fire risk. They seem to be concerned with that. We're working with our partners at state lands. We know that it's important to all of you, and we are working on it. But it'll open when it's safe to do so. Our next question is, with not as many cars on the road, would now be a good time to fix the roads? We addressed that a little bit in some of our updates. Twofold. One, with the COVID-19 situation, our budgets are going to be impacted severely. And so we don't have the resources to do that right now. But the resources that we already had scheduled and approved prior to this, with some of the chip seal and fog sealing that we'll be seeing in the coming week, have been scheduled and have been able to minimize the impact to our citizens, especially with some real high traffic areas on the McCulloch Boulevard area that had chip seal. Jess, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, just one. It's been a couple of weeks, I think. Again, time is hard to determine. But the city crews, we redid the intersection at Swanson and Smoke Tree. So that's one of those intersections that that was one of the worst in the city. So if you haven't been through that area, And if you remember the intersection, it's the one where you go through the four-way stop sign and then you're do one of these as you try to get through the intersection. That was all ripped up and replaced. And so that's another road construction project that was recently completed as well.
All right, we have another couple of more comments about Body Beach and how to mitigate it. Thank you for that feedback. We'll share that in our conversations that we're having. The next question is why are the gas prices so high here and lower in other areas close to us? That's a question that I have heard several times, and it's always a mystery to me as well. So, Jess, I don't know if you have any background on it, or sorry to put you on the spot, but I don't know the answer to that. I do know that the prices of oil that we see on the news, it takes a while before we see those at the pump. So that's crude oil. By the time it gets refined and shipped and actually into the tanks that are going to go into our vehicles, that's a process. So we should be seeing some savings in the future. But
yeah, it's a question that I continue to ask as well too. I mean, as the city, we're not a regulator. We don't determine the price of fuel, and we're a customer as individuals. But as the city, we pay at the pump for patrol vehicles, for fire engines, for our parks and recreation maintenance staff, and for our public works staff. So we pay at the pump as well too. So, but we're a customer, not a regulator. But continue to ask some of those questions. Some of the feedback I get that's from folks in the community and those in that business is that the price of transportation is one thing that I hear quite a bit in terms of the distribution comes from either like Vegas or Phoenix, and because it takes longer to get to Havasu, that is reflected in the pump price. So it's one of those things where also, as you notice, you look throughout the community, you see a number of gas stations that are out there. So, and they're all, some have a little bit cheaper gas and some are a little bit more expensive. So encourage those in the community to shop around, and then that has an impact in terms of how we use our wallets has an impact on prices in the community. So maybe that's something that's out there as well too. But in the end, I don't know.
All right. Next comment/question is: I filled out my census during the meeting. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyone else do it as well? Count for Lake Havasu. We appreciate that. But then they want me to open Body Beach now. So hopefully through these conversations, you've learned that it's not the city that can do that, but we hear you. We understand what you're saying, and we'll continue to have those conversations with state land. Next question: any possibility we can get some state reps from Arizona State Land to come to our area and discuss the concerns with them? We really need clarity on Body Beach. And so, I think we've covered, kind of the actions we're doing, and we're working for not only a short-term solution, but also long-term solutions, as Jess had mentioned earlier. And we hear what you're saying. Right now is unfortunately not a time that we can have a public gathering to have these discussions, but we understand. Another one is State Trust said yesterday they not have the funds to clean it. Clean it being Body Beach, but there are some grants that they're working on to do so, and so they still are working with that. How will lack of income from visitors stress city finances? Great question on that. You may have seen a statement that we released from my office urging visitors to stay home. Now is not the time to visit our area. We love our visitors and we love everything about them. It's what makes Lake Havasu City so special. But while the health and safety of our citizens is at risk, we're asking visitors to stay home. We do know that the best way to slow the spread of the virus is just to stay put. So if you're here, stay put. If you're there, stay there. And so we'll be able to slow that spread, flatten the curve, ensure that the medical capacity is not overwhelmed, which, as many of you may know, it's underwhelmed right now, and that's a good thing from the perspective of all of us doing the right thing by staying home, staying healthy, and staying connected. And also is what led to Governor Ducey's executive order to open elective surgeries based on the criteria that his office has set. So the lack of visitors is going to have a huge impact on us. But so is the closure of so many of our businesses that were not deemed essential in Governor Ducey's order. So we're working on all fronts to safely identify when and how that reopening looks like, and give our input to the governor's office, so that when the time is right, that our businesses can be set up for success, and visitors can be welcomed back to the area. One thing, and I would hope most know this, but just in case, I mean, it's real tempting to have stay-home orders lifted and or less restrictive, and immediately start gathering in large groups. So parties or events or those types of things. It's again a slow approach to what the new normal is. As more is learned about the virus, the spread of the virus, the impact of it, vaccines, and all of those pieces. So, I still encourage folks to social distance, and we will make our way through this, and we're in this together. And I know that sounds cliche, and you're hearing it all over the place, but every single person's way of life and life has been impacted by this pandemic in some way or another. And we're working on those fronts to do that. So visitation is really important for our community, and it's going to impact us. All right, next question. Any updates on the cause of perfectly timed fires? Please let us know of your plans in detail, and not government talk, please. So one, I hope I'm never talking government talk. I hope that you know that I was elected by you, the citizens of Lake Havasu City, to represent you, and I hear you. But one of the great things about Lake Havasu City is the outdoor recreation, the vast open spaces, the small town community charm that we have, and our citizens. So in an issue like this, those same things impact us on the opposite. So we have a federal waterway. We can't control it. We are surrounded by state lands and federal lands that Lake Havasu City does not have any control of. Then we're surrounded by county lands, which Lake Havasu City does not have any control of. So it puts us in a disadvantage, and we're also a place that what makes us so great, the reason why we have such dynamic a variety of restaurants and outdoor events and outdoor facilities is because of visitation. And so that's just always been who we've been forever. And so now for us to urge visitors to stay home and ask citizens to follow Governor Ducey's order of stay home, stay healthy, and stay connected, and all of those pieces it's such it makes it even more difficult in that frame. We can't just turn it off like that. So, Justin, I don't know if you have any thoughts to add to that comment.
No, I think you kind of hit it exactly right. So, we have a couple other questions that are out there. Let's go for those.
All right. So we're about we have 5 or 6 minutes left, and we'll get through the rest of this.
I took a note of a couple of questions here, Cal. I mean, if you're searching through whatever else. Hey,
yeah.
Do you have something?
You go ahead. Yes.
So I apologize. I'm not doing this in order, and I'm talking to you and looking down and some of the questions that come up and taking a few notes. But somebody's asking a question about water bills and extensions on water bills, those types of things too. So please reach out to our customer service department here at the city, have some conversations, talk to them about your situation, and maybe a payment plan or something like that we could do to address that. So we have some options available. Please contact the number on the bill, or contact customer service here at Lake Havasu City, and we'll see what we can do to help you. There's another question on here, Cal, about the Moyo and Curio. There's a 3-story building that's over there, and who to talk to get some more information. That site was properly zoned and has been in place for a lot of years. But if you have some specific questions about that lot and that project, contact our Planning and Zoning Division and our Development Services Department, and I'll give you that phone number. And so that is, which is 928-453-4148. 453-4148. That's our Planning and Zoning. That's for anybody watching. That's the number to call if you have questions with regards to projects or planning and zoning questions, things like that. So we're here to help. And I have a question about pools at condos. So that's one that's out there. When can we open the pools at our condos and RV parks? And I've gotten a number of questions that have come in from email or phone calls, and we got one here today too. This is an executive order, the same executive order that caused the city to close down the public restrooms and playground equipment and other amenities within the parks. Also ordered the closure of communal pools at the condo associations. Right now, that's an executive order that expires on April 30th. But again, so take a look at that executive order available on the governor's website under executive orders. But also keep an eye out for, we don't know if the governor is going to provide direction today, Monday, Tuesday, on whether to extend it or modify it and so forth. But we fully expect that to happen. And I don't know. Right now, it's April 30th is the executive order is through, and we'll see if that gets extended or otherwise modified. So
there's also a question about if we have any input or control regarding the franchise of our internet, such as some of the providers that we have here. State law recently changed, which does not allow us to have any control anymore. We used to have some control, and we don't. But we have been working with Southern Link and other providers about service-related issues for our citizens. We've had some fairly good success on that, and they continue to work with us in that area. Also, Vice Mayor Lane had mentioned to contact the LHC Resource Alliance if anyone's having issues with water bill type stuff too, to see if maybe they can help. And then there's a mention on here about some of the old well sites, and that's the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality is monitoring those sites. They've done well testing, continue to do some testing in those areas, and they're taking the lead in that area. Just I don't know if you have any additional thoughts to add to that. That's been ongoing, but nothing really new to report.
Yeah, ongoing. This goes back to the founding days of Lake Havasu City when Robert McCulloch built his manufacturing plant for chainsaws and for boat motors here in Havasu. And a lot of that chrome that was used in that manufacturing process was disposed of incorrectly. So it's ongoing for many years in Havasu. It will continue to be, and we're working hard with the ADQ to make sure that those sites are that's not going to have any impact to the health and safety of our residents. Some of those lands are now that were originally owned by McCulloch are now owned by Shopback, that corporation. And so there's conversations that we have with them and then ADEQ has with them. If you want some more information about all this, you go to ADEQ's website, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, Environmental Quality, and then do a search for Havasu. You'll see some cases pop up and backgrounds there.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we are getting towards the end of the time. One of the questions I get a lot is, how has my life changed since all this began? And like you, considerable. I'm a person that's out of the house most of the day, usually leaving first thing in the morning and not getting back in until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So that certainly has changed. And then, as Jess mentioned earlier, just the workload. And I'm so fortunate to have the support of my employer to allow me to focus my full attention on city business. And the owner of the resort that I work at is taking the lead along with the assistant general manager. So it's been considerable. Like all of you, I know that it's impacted all of us. Just a quick note, so the listeners know that we've been working with Representative Leo Biasucci. He's been real helpful on getting test kits and driving some testing for us. We've been working with Senator Borelli. We've also been working with our federal delegation, and they've done some amazing outreach. Senator McSally, Senator Sinema, and Congressman Gosar. We have if not weekly, daily conversations with their offices or them directly. They're really interested in ensuring that our businesses have the support that they need. That was what the CARES Act was for. Of course, the citizens as well, and that's some of the stimulus checks and some of those other unemployment benefits and those types of things that are available. On the unemployment front, if you find yourself in a position that you need to file for unemployment and you've been denied, file again. The systems are overwhelmed, and it's important that that you get those monies. They're intended for you. But if you find yourself in that position, just continue to apply. So last thought was I just want to thank Jerry Bracamani and Steve Blake for making all of this technology that you're seeing this morning happen and facilitating all of the questions to us. It's an honor to serve as your mayor. I'm glad we have these opportunities to outreach, and I can't wait for the days that we can be in the same room to have these exchanges. I remain committed to you and the citizens of Lake Havasu City. If I can be of any assistance, please feel free to reach out on a variety of fronts, whether it's on email or social media, or call the office. But no, the volumes are very high, and I try to get back to every single person. Sometimes it might take me a minute or a day, but my intention is to get back to everyone. So everyone, just I don't know if you have any parting words before.
No, I think you said it. You said it well, Cal. So again, appreciate the opportunity to do this virtually, and hopefully we'll get back to a new normal here in future times. But we'll continue to do these at least once a month, and look forward to the next one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Lake Havasu City, and stay healthy, and we'll talk soon. Take care, and thank you for joining us today.
Be well.